right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order, and we will start with a roll call.
Trustee Madhatal?
Yeah.
Trustee Chow, absent. Trustee Lu?
Here.
Trustee Vogel?
Here.
Trustee Leon?
Here. Thanks, Erin. All right, first item of business is board agenda approval. Can I get a motion?
I move.
Thank you, Phyllis. And a second?
I'll move, second it.
Thank you, Satish. And a roll call vote.
Trustee Madhatal?
Aye.
Trustee Lu?
Aye.
Trustee Vogel?
Aye.
Trustee Leon?
Great, thank you. Motion passes. Next on the agenda is our board study session. This is a time for staff to present different topics within our district and within the public education space so that we as a board can take a deeper dive and get to understand these different issues. So I'm going to pass the time over to Superintendent Yao.
Thank you. So tonight we are excited to bring forward, as you remember, in October, during our board advance, we had brought forward information about middle schools, and we had mentioned about the career tech. And one of the indications from several of the board members was to continue to explore and find out a little bit more information about career tech. I know that we've had some staff that had did a visitation. And so tonight, Sarah Brown, our director from Ed Services, and Erin Leary, principal from Lawson, are going to lead us through where we are and what our next steps are. I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you very much, Stacy. So yeah, we did a lot of discovering about CTE and what it was. I actually found out a lot for myself, and we have some really great information that we'd like to share with you. So before we kind of get into some of the stuff that we have gleaned from our investigations, I want to show you a video, just a little bit about what career technical education is. And this video is actually a newscast from, I believe it's PBS News, and they went out and interviewed some kids at a high school, at Chico High School, at the career technical education. So just want to show that video, and then we can go from there.
You'll make your cuts right next to it. You then have the roots, and then you're going to need to come to your pot.
Wander around Chico High School, and you may think you're actually visiting some vibrant business park with a busy plant nursery, an industrial plant with welding and sophisticated plasma cutting machines turning out designs that are then powder coated and baked to a shiny finish. Or even an architectural and engineering firm where you'll see 3D models of new buildings or the latest labor-saving kitchen devices. But all this is part of Chico High's ambitious effort to provide their students a half-dozen college and career pathways in technical education, starting in their freshman year. Principal Mark Beebe says the goal is to guide them to their choice of community college, a technical school, or Cal State or the University of California.
The more relevant we can make it at the high school level to send a student out college and career ready, that's extremely important to our students and our families.
The school's pathways include health, the arts and media, and information technology. 18 schools in the Butte and Glenn County region successfully applied together for a Career Pathways Trust Grant from the State Department of Education. Chico High's success has earned it a Gold Ribbon Schools Award for meeting the state's new academic content and standards.
What seed did you plant? Cilantro? Yeah, are you guys going to take that home and eat it?
Appropriate for this rural community, one of the biggest and most popular pathways is agriculture. Ag chemistry teacher Courtney Champlin is challenging her students to identify and analyze the best fertilizer for these seedlings. But she and other educators say it's much more than just learning chemistry and plant biology. It's also life skills.
Are we producing people that are going to be good citizens and be a positive person in the world and within their community? With us and with the ag industry and with our pathway, we really take that to heart, and we make sure that that's something that we pursue with our students.
A lot of times in high school and even in college, most students have no idea what they want to do. So this even gives them the opportunity to dabble in these pathways. And so having that available to them really gives them a motivation and drive. And then it helps them by organizing their classes for the next few years and really giving them those skills that they need to be successful.
A key component of a pathway education is clearly defined class schedules. From 9th through 12th grade, students know exactly what classes to take each year to satisfy all their requirements and meet all state academic content and performance standards. Their path can be customized to best prepare them for technical or community college, Cal State or UC. And they're provided academic exit ramps should they change their minds and decide on a different path.
A lot of people are confused in what they want to do, and a career pathway really sets you on, like how it's called, a pathway to your future.
If there's not a pathway, then you kind of have to go on your own, and I think a lot of kids have trouble with figuring out how to go on their own because there's a lot of options, so the pathway really sets it up for you.
Here in the agriculture, mechanics, and manufacturing section, even the freshman 14-year-olds are wielding the acetylene torches. They go from designing, to cutting, to welding, to the final powder coating of their metal designs.
I think it's super duper cool because you just get like a list of classes you need to take, and then you can just have that career from then on, and you're just set.
Even though I'm not really sure what I'm going to do in the future, I think that this could definitely be something I could do.
These kids can take the skills that they are learning currently right now in this CTE program and get a job right away with a great foundation to run or be highly trained in that particular piece of equipment.
The architect was wanting us to do a rock texture, correct?
Administrators, teachers, and students all say these pathways simply wouldn't be as successful without extensive involvement from local businesses. These students in this architecture pathway are creating 3D models for a local architecture firm for an actual building project, a new animal shelter.
The people they're trying to hire right now don't even have the understanding of the programs that we have as high school students. It's really given me a focus into maybe what I want to do with the rest of my life, and so I think that pathway has created that opportunity for me.
I tried working on the hinge for the...
Over on the engineering team, students are designing a new line of wooden sunglasses for a local manufacturer, designs that may actually become part of the company's product line.
We're not just a bunch of high schoolers doing projects that we're going to get graded on. We're working for professional industries, and it really ups the standards that we have to do, so it ultimately makes all of us better students.
Some of these pathways provide college credit at nearby Cal State Chico or Butte College. Others, like welding, offer certificates that lead directly to jobs. Career tech programs can be challenging to set up and expensive to maintain, but studies show that kids in pathways have higher graduation rates. State funding is still available to start new programs and can be built into schools' local funding formulas.
They want high schools and districts to see that CTE is important and to build that into your local budget so that you can sustain and maintain the programs.
Students and educators say Chico's success convinces them it's something nearly every California school should try.
Career pathways give students purpose and open their eyes to other options available to them. I think the businesses would be the first to tell you, we need more of this.
Perhaps this school's most dramatic success story? Engineering Pathways inspired Hallie to invent some new mason jar lids, a cutting board, and microwave-safe thermos, products that earned this senior third place in a national design competition.
It has definitely opened up my idea of how engineering is involved in kind of every aspect of life. So I'm very grateful for this pathway because I've learned so much throughout the years.
Architecture is a popular career pathway for today's students looking for a...
So after watching that video, I mean, it's pretty fascinating what these kids are doing, and it's not like our traditional classroom. They're really getting in there and inventing different things. They're doing some serious engineering, and they're gaining some skills that really are needed in the workforce. And they're working together collaboratively as teams. It's pretty fascinating. Now, this is was a video for a high school. So I have some more information about middle school and how middle school can transition to something like this. Let me move on here to EdCode. So I don't know how many of you realize, but actually career technical education is in EdCode. And I'll just kind of read that to you because it looks a little small. The most important part is districts are encouraged to provide all pupils with a rigorous academic curriculum that integrates academic and career skills, incorporates applied learning in all disciplines, and prepares all pupils for high school graduation and career study. And really, it's focusing on students that are in grades 7 to 12. That's what the CTE is looking at for in EdCode. So the state standards for career-ready practice, and what is fascinating to me about the state standards, and we'll kind of go over all of them, but think about what our portrait of a learner looks like. And there's such a huge connection between what we're looking for as a portrait of a learner and what the state standards are talking about with regards to CTE. So some of the things that they are wanting students to learn with regards to the state standards for CTE is applying appropriate technical skills and academic knowledge, communicating clearly, effectively, and with reason, develop an education and career plan aligned to personal goals, apply technology to enhance productivity, utilizing critical thinking to make sense of problems and persevere in solving them, practice personal health and understand financial literacy, act as a responsible citizen in the workplace and the community, model integrity, ethical leadership, and effective management, work productively in teams while integrating cultural and global competence, demonstrate creativity and innovation, employ valid and reliable research strategies, and understand the environmental, social, and economic impacts of decisions. So if you take a look at our CUSD profile of a learner, all of those words that are highlighted in yellow are seen in the standards for CTE. So there's a strong, strong connection with what we're trying to do for our students in this new age that we are in, and what the CTE standards would like our children to acquire. So one of the things that I thought would be a good idea is reaching out to the high school district and finding out what is it that they're doing over there and how can we connect it with what they're doing over there to what we're doing here. So in Fremont Union High School District, I actually spoke with Trudy Gross, who is the assistant superintendent over there, and she's in charge of the CTE program. So these are all the courses that they are currently offering over at Fremont Union High School District. And you can see over to the right-hand side, the different schools that they are currently, those courses are currently offered at. On the left-hand side, you are seeing the pathways within each industry sector. And when a student completes a pathway over at Fremont Union High School District, they receive a certificate, and then they also receive a notation on their transcript. So you're probably wondering, how many of these kids, how many of our kids actually are heading up there and actually enrolling in CTE? Well, about 30% of the population of Fremont Union. So it's a pretty substantial percent that is enrolling in one of these pathways. So one of the things I also asked Trudy is, well, can kids just dabble around in these classes and not necessarily choose one of these pathways? And she said, oh, by all means, kids are, going from the building and construction, maybe into health science, and just kind of dabbling around, which is really what we kind of want kids to do as well. And definitely in the middle school, because they don't really have a clear idea, many of them, as to what they want to do when they grow up and go into a career. So we want them to get some of those experiences. Some of the classes from Fremont Union require them to be dually enrolled in a community college, and you'll see up here the ones that are having students be dually enrolled with the community college. Does anybody have any questions about this so far?
Yes, I do. So when you talk about these courses that they're taking in the high school, this doesn't necessarily apply to us, but does that necessarily, or could that lead like to an internship with a automobile agency with the possibility of future employment or anything like that?
I'm sure
partnership.
I'm sure it probably could. I didn't ask her specifically if they had partnerships with industry, but they are giving them the skills to be able to get a job right after they graduate from
without necessarily doing additional training.
Yes, without necessarily needing additional
Unless it would
training.
be on the job training, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank
A
you.
couple of them that do the certificate programs, they actually, with that certificate, that is highly looked at when they go out and are seeking employment. So they can take that certificate in the eyes of many of the businesses. That does look like additional training because they've gone through the course. So it does open doors for them.
Good, thank you.
I will also say too, because I was asking her, well, are there college bound kids also that are enrolling in some of these? And absolutely. And it's a lot of the kids that are maybe interested in medicine and they want to take some of these health classes and get a little, experience doing some of those types of tasks that you might do in the medical profession. So it's a wide range of students, but like she said, about 30% are the ones that choose one of those actual industry sectors that they're going to go on the pathway.
Just two clarification questions. You talked about dual enrollment with the community colleges. I wonder if you could speak a bit more. What does that mean? Or does that mean the classes are actually offered at either De Anza or Foothill, essentially, and then they get high school credit? So they're sort of, okay, so that's what that is.
Yes. So they're actually high school students, but they're able to take classes at like De Anza, and then they get the credit.
Okay.
For high school. The other thing I asked her was, well, what if I'm a student that potentially would like to be in like only courses that are offered at Fremont, and I'm supposed to go to Homestead, and they're looking at really opening that up for students to be able to decide to go to a different school in order for them to be able to enroll in that particular pathway.
Okay. All right. My second question is, in looking at this, I see, for instance, Lynbrook has far fewer courses and, for instance, some of the other schools there. And maybe this is a little too detailed. It's fine if we don't. But I'm just wondering, is that a reflection of, do you know if it's reflection of interest or maybe facility availability, or I was just wondering about that, given the different numbers. Yeah.
I'm not sure why those particular classes are only offered and there's a smaller number.
Okay, that's
Can I
right.
take a step?
Sure.
Is Lynbrook a highly academic school? That's why. Because that limits the amount of electives.
Okay, all right.
I'll just jump in and say at Lynbrook, they also do a lot of classes with West Valley College. So they'll offer some classes there on the campus.
I see.
And then I know like both my kids did dual enrollment with De Anza and Foothill, and they got college credit for it.
Okay.
So
that's outside of this list.
I think some of those
Anyway,
questions we may,
maybe
as they
it's-
pertain to the high school, we may
It's
not
high
have
school.
all the
Yeah.
information for it. So I think if we keep on track for our middle
All
schools.
right. Okay, thanks.
I have
Thanks.
Oh, Satish had a question.
So one thing is like all these courses are like a kind of like a continuation, like means like a 4-year thing, or it's like 1 semester or 1 year kind of thing. Do we have more details about
I think that the classes are different. I think some of them could be, a semester class, or it could be a year-long class. So it just depends, but all of the classes that are in there are in the different sectors. So it just depends on the pathway that's required for you to get a certificate once you complete those classes at the different schools.
by end of the your 12th grade, or let's say 9th grade, you complete one, you get a certificate, kind of?
No, I think it's at the end of your, when you graduate.
When you graduate.
That's when you get the certificate and then you get it, a notation.
Okay, and you get credits also for this. This will be equivalent to, like, each course will be equivalent to 1 credit also, 5 credits or whatever.
Each class would be?
Like, for example, chemistry one, if you take it, that's a five credits, like, kind of, right? So, or a math is a 5 credit.
Yes, it's equivalent to any of the academic classes that are there. It's still a full, whatever the credits are assigned for the class, whether it's a semester class or a full year class. They're treated the same.
Okay.
And that's why anyone could take them too. So other kids can dabble around in all of these classes as well.
I'm going to put us back on track and move on to the next slide so we can talk about CUSD middle schools.
All right, great. Okay, so what I really wanted to do then is I wanted to kind of dive into our electives. And we talked about that the last time I was here with regards to what electives we're offering. And then I was thinking, wow, okay, so what about our electives and how do they fit into the different sectors of our CTE to see what areas we're fulfilling? And it was pretty fascinating. We are fulfilling quite a huge area of the arts, media, and entertainment with all of these electives that are listed here. And then for building and construction trades, we are offering wood shop and metal shop. And then for business and finance, we're offering financial literacy and management and leadership. Engineering and architecture, we have model engineering, search, makerspace, computer science, and Java. Hospitality, tourism, and recreation, we've got cooking, advanced cooking, pastry arts. And then marketing, sales, and service, we have screen printing, and we have yearbook. And now I am going to have Erin talk a little bit about one of her students and what he created in a wood shop.
So having been in this district since 1997, I've seen woodshop take a really big turn. So when I first started teaching at Miller, they had woodshop and the kids made kits. They had these really cute little kits and they would make clocks and pen cups and things like that, but they were all kits. So the teacher would buy these kits and the kids would make a project from the kit, which was great. At the time, it was so impressive. And some of the kids made these very ornate clocks and things like that. But we have shifted and kids are now doing things like turning bowls and making cutting boards or building tables. So this is, he was an 8th grader with us last year. His name's Augustia. And he really wanted to make a dining room table for his family. So his family purchased the piece of wood because it was quite expensive, but it's a raw edge table. And in the first picture, and it was in 2 pieces. So the picture on the left is half of the table. And you can see the table has natural breaks in it. One of them on the right, he's actually filling with a black epoxy. So he wanted that particular crack in the wood, it's a natural crack in the wood, to be filled with epoxy. But that big one at the end, he actually left raw. So you can. So here you see, again, these are halves of the table and how he filled it with epoxy. The wood was very rough. So he went through and filled it with, and he chose the black epoxy. You can fill with all sorts of things. You sometimes will see it like arts and crafts festivals. You'll see bowls or tables filled with turquoise or resin or something like that. But he and his family chose the black epoxy. And then he ended up, go ahead. Now you see on the left, he sanded for hours and hours and hours. And this is what he looked like at the end of one class period. I mean, it was measurable, the amount of sawdust this kid had all over him. But you can see now he's joined the two halves of the table together, and he used a dovetail joint, there you go, to join the two halves of the table together. The legs on the bottom right that you're seeing in the picture were temporary. But he spent most of, from sort of like this time of the school year all the way to the end of the year working on this table. The only help he got from the teacher was, you know, like technical questions, like I've run into this problem, what do I do? And they would problem solve and figure it out together. And then of course the actual legs of the table he got some help with as well. And there it is, in his home. So it has become his family's actual dining room table. It is absolutely stunning. It is, like, you can see the wood grain, you can see the beautiful epoxy work he did. It's rough edge, but it's smooth, like it's all sanded beautifully. And proud does not even begin to describe it. And we had this big project, right? And we've had this one big project, but we've also had several other successes. One of our biggest successes is one of our SDC students. He spent the entire, and we have mild moderate SDC at Lawson, and he actually made an end table for his teacher. He ended up making this beautiful checkerboard cutting board. And this was a student that was not always verbal. He wasn't nonverbal, but he didn't speak a lot. But he was able to be paired up with a general education student, and they just clicked. So he made this cutting board. It was beautiful. And he was looking at this table and he wanted to do something similar. So it was very different in design. It was a slatted table, but he and his SDC, Language Arts Social Studies teacher, picked out the wood, they picked out the stain, and he ended up building her a table for her apartment. We currently have several students turning bowls on wood lathes that are comparable to anything you would find at an art and wine festival. So we just have really shifted to really embracing the creativity and allowing students the space and the guidance to create things that are not kit-based. And we do have kits. We do have kids that still need the kit. And so we're really differentiating for students and their different skill levels.
And I have to say, I mean, I would buy that table. Yeah. The things that the kids are making these days are amazing. And they have those skills that they could leave middle school and get a job woodworking. So that's pretty amazing. One of the things that I did want to talk to you a little bit about are the areas that we are not currently offering in CUSD. So public services. So for example, that could be like a law class. Okay. Transportation at the high school, they're offering like an automotive class. We don't have an automotive class or anything like that. Health science. We don't have any health science classes at this time, or education or child development or family services. So these are the areas that we do not have current classes. So the next thing I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is the visit that we did. I took all of the middle school principals to Foster City, to Bowditch Middle School. And we wanted to see what their CTE program looked like. And it was actually pretty amazing. And basically what it looked like was a very large room, and inside the room are different modules that the students are working on. And they're about 6 to 8 week modules. So some of the things that we saw the kids doing was, for example, digital audio. So some of the kids were making music and measuring sound. They were producing music. They were doing video editing, podcasting. They were doing phlebotomy in the classroom, and not on a real human. And they had a fake arm with fake blood, but they were actually like, taking blood from the arm and finding the vein and the whole thing. And they were taking each other's blood pressure, and they were measuring different things with that. They were testing sunscreen in a different area. So they were figuring out which sunscreen worked and which didn't. And then they were creating their own sunscreen and then testing to see whether or not their sunscreen worked. Also in the phlebotomy area, they were also suturing. So they were like sewing up the fake arm. And another group of kids were creating a rocket, and they were launching the rocket, and they had a drone that they had programmed the drone themselves. And then another group of kids were actually learning a very valuable life skill of filling a hole in drywall, which we all need to know. So that was pretty fascinating. We had kids that were creating a video game. We had other kids that were creating a dress and doing fashion design. And then there were another group of kids that had a full engine from a go-kart, and they had taken the whole thing apart and they were putting the whole thing back together again. And it was all in these little labs that they were doing. So it was pretty neat. And it was pretty interesting to see the kids and ask them if they were interested in what they were doing. They all seemed very interested. They, of course, can't do every single one of the labs. So what they do is they take an interest inventory before they start the class. And they then are placed in the different labs according to their interests. One of the things that was very interesting to me was the instructor said that there were a lot of kids that said, oh yeah, I really want to go into the medical field. But then when they were doing phlebotomy and pulling out the blood, no, thank you. So it was very interesting. And that's what we really want. We want kids to be able to try a bunch of different stuff and then be able to say, I like that. I don't really like that. And then be able to hone down their pathway to really figure out what is it that I really want to do. So you don't end up at college like many of us did, I think. And we get there and we say, what do we want to do? I don't know. I guess I'll be a business major. And maybe that's not your thing after all. So this gives everybody a little opportunity to dabble. All right. This is another video, and this is not the Bowditch Middle School, but it is the same company, because it is a company where you buy the different modules from, and they set up your whole CTE program for you. So this is at the Sacramento County Schools. So I'm going to show you a little bit, and then you'll see what the modules look like. Okay, Mom, we're ready for a video. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Dave Allen, and this is our PAX Pat lab. We have about 28 modules in this room. Combined, they are for 7th and 8th grade. We have one of the biggest labs in the country, actually. And if you've taken a look around here already today, or what you're going to see today, are visitors from different schools throughout Sac City Unified School District, as well as the region, who are all getting excited about the 7th and 8th grade career readiness labs. And this is a great way for us to show our students with hands-on experiences different career fields that they may be interested in, that they can go into right out of high school, sometimes with just a 2-year certification and a degree and end up making fantastic money. So throughout all of these modules, you will find everything from medical to home and structural engineering to forensic science, culinary, as well as digital audio and digital manufacturing. We are really trying to cover it all, especially for this region in Sacramento, where we think that kids will be able to graduate high school from an area high school and find that there's something they want to go into. And that's really what we're about, is trying to get kids excited about a career and get them excited about attending school too.
Hey, does anybody have any questions about our visit that we did to the Bowditch Middle School? So our next video I'm going to show you, and we'll play it in just a minute. One of the classes that they have over at Fremont Union High School District is called Project Lead the Way. And Project Lead the Way is a class, and it's really STEM based. And they actually have classes that go from elementary all the way up to high school. So at Fremont Union, they actually have Project Lead the Way over there. So for the middle school program, they're really kind of doing coding, robotics. They have flight and space that they learn about, and then they learn about the human body system. But it's very similar to what you just saw. I think it's just a little bit more honed in on STEM. And it's very hands-on and very collaborative. And they're doing a lot of problem solving, and it's focusing on real world challenges. And a lot of the students, I was actually at a school that had Project Lead the Way as an assistant principal, and the students, what they learn in middle school, they take that directly to the Project Lead the Way in high school. So we'll watch a little video about Project Lead the Way.
It teaches students to think differently than any other subject, I think. It allows them the creativity to express themselves and do things that they don't get to do in other courses.
In Gateway, I feel like I have more freedom.
We get to really unleash our creativity in this class.
It's a lot more hands-on, and we get to do a lot more different projects.
You solve your own problems, you build your own stuff.
We can turn the project into our project, not just a school project.
Gateway is for all kids to take. I find that actually the girls enjoy it, and once they get in and realize what they're getting into, they enjoy the creativity part of it.
We built dragsters. We've also done Rube Goldberg machines, and then we built roller coasters.
This is building stuff, designing things. That's what you will do every day in your life. It's a real world class.
The projects teach us like how to think of stuff your own way.
You're able to express yourself a lot more through this program than through other subjects in middle school.
Our program is offered 9-week modules, so it fits in middle school schedules. We find it's a great segue into a high school program.
It gives them a base to go by and an idea of what they are going to get into if they take the high school programs.
I feel like the Gateway classes will provide a good foundation for what the more advanced topics that high school would teach.
I didn't really know what engineering was before middle school, but now it's definitely one of the things I'm thinking about doing as a career, because I really like this class and it's a lot of fun.
All right, so that's Project Lead the Way. So you're probably wondering, what are our next steps and what are we going to do? So our next steps, we have created a survey for our staff, and we're fine tuning that with our principals from middle school. We have to really concentrate on our 6th grade model, because whatever happens with our 6th grade model, we can then look at what we're offering in 7th and 8th grade. So 6th grade is first, and that's what we're really going to be surveying our staff about. We also want to find out what the kids want and what kind of classes they're interested in. We also will be going and visiting Fremont Union High School District to take a look at some of their career technical education classes. I've specifically asked for us to go check out the Project Lead the Way class and see what that looks like. So in January, get all the principals together, and then we'll head off and see some of these different classes. The lab that we went to visit is called Paxton Patterson Labs. So I'm in contact with them, and what we would need in order to get something like that going at our schools. And then we need to find out a little bit more about Project Lead the Way to see what that looks like. Like I said, we need to determine the components of what our sixth grade program really looks like, and then we need to explore what our funding is. As you know, as you probably saw, all of that costs money to be able to start up a lab like that and then maintain it. And then we also really want to take a look at what are they offering at Fremont and how are we connecting with Fremont. So one of the things that I asked about when we were looking at the lab in Bowditch Middle School, you can choose from lots of different labs. And so you can choose at one middle school to be offering certain labs that then have the pathway to go up to the high school. So not every single high school or not every single middle school has to have the same labs. So that's kind of nice. So that's where we're at.
And I think, you know, as you're considering and thinking about the implications that Sarah and Aaron spoke to is, you know, this really does fit in with our work of the portrait of the learner. But the other pieces that really, you know, the implications for this as we're looking at our work that our enrollment task force is doing with the middle schools and balancing enrollment, is there a way to utilize this as well to help balance out for those future years? Definitely as we look at building that sixth grade program, what does that look like? As we continue our conversation about the bond and the facility needs, again, I think this fits very well into where we are. So all those pieces are coming together, and, you know, perfect timing and the excitement. We certainly want to, you know, see our students better prepared and, you know, gaining what their interest is so that they can lead into where they go to the high school and further, and, you know, make sure that they're, you know, 30% of our students are utilizing the CTE. We really do need to build it out here at our middle schools. And so timing is perfect for us to take these next steps.
Questions?
I just have a comment. When I was at CSBA last week, I don't know how many of us went to the final speaker on Saturday morning, but he talked a lot about this. And he quoted some statistics about the number of kids who don't choose a career college path. They choose a different path. And it's a pretty high percentage. So I'm really glad that we're looking into this. A question that I have is about metal shop. I know we don't offer it at every school. We don't have the facilities, but it seems to me, just from my minimal observation, that it's pretty popular. So I'm wondering if that's something we might want to consider as we look at the bond. They're probably expensive facilities to put in. I don't know, but so I hope that that will come out of your student survey, that if that's a high interest of kids that don't have that in their schools.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll find out some more information about what the kids are interested in.
Right, exactly. Okay, thank you, Cindy.
Sure. I don't have any questions, just really some comments. This is a wonderful presentation, wonderful plan. So thanks for sharing this. I'm certainly very supportive of us expanding our offerings in this area. I think just that diversity, I think whether or not what the kids do with it, you know, after high school and all that, whatever benefits there, that's great. But I think just while they're in our district, having these choices to explore these different things would be great. I'm assuming, you know, offering a law class probably costs a little less than an auto shop.
Yeah.
And so I look forward to hearing more about, you know, so what are the funding opportunities. And I know we always say this, but, you know, if it's possible to kind of start on this next year, even some elements of it, that would be great. But I understand things take time to sort of sort out, but definitely a great job on this. Thank you. I don't have any more to add to the plan. This looks terrific the way it is. Thanks.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. Okay, one is on the funding. I think you had mentioned that there is funding available for this kind of stuff from state, or I guess it's from state. So are we getting anything for even the smallest portion what we have, or how do we get that more money from that for that?
So we have looked at a couple different of the funding sources from the state. We weren't eligible for some of them just because of not having the low socioeconomic students. So there's always those barriers I think that we face, but we continue to look because this is a huge focus for the state and they are continuing to allocate money for it. So we continue to explore, and I know Allison and the Ed Services, every time we get notice of something, we do look into it. So we're going to continue that because I think as it moves forward, more and more schools are going to start receiving some of the funding.
Yeah, because even if, let's say with the bond and other things, we expand the facilities, we still need to sustain it, right? So like probably even hiring teachers or hiring specialists on this kind of things, probably that would cost us anyway going forward. So we need to have some kind of a plan around that.
Project Lead, the way I've used that before, and it's a wonderful program. It comes in with all the curriculum, and it also embeds. We did an engineering academy, but it also embedded into the regular other academic classes. So you worked a lot with your science and your math teachers, but it does come at a cost. But again, it's good for kids and where they're able to take it.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is, you visited a couple of places, right? So is it like is it the in-house staff is teaching or training them, or it is given to a third party and they're doing this?
Yeah, it's actually a third party, that Patterson Paxton, that trains the staff, but it is one of the in-house staff members, one of the teachers that is actually facilitating. They're called more facilitators because as you saw with that, with the modules, there's this flip chart. And so the kids are really doing this themselves and working as a team to try and go through the lessons, and the teacher is the facilitator, but it is a teacher from the actual middle school.
Thank you. Yeah, that's it.
I'm also very much in favor of this. I'm excited that we can expand our offerings for our students. And yeah, I think being able to do more of these CTE type classes would be good. I did have a couple questions with regard to sixth grade specifically. And I'm not as familiar with the other middle schools. I know Miller pretty well. And I know we did this presentation. I can't remember exactly what they had, but at least at Miller, there's for the sixth graders, they choose the wheel, which already gives them the opportunity to try like half a semester or a quarter at a time. And then if you don't choose the wheel, then you're either choosing band or choir, right? So I assume it's something similar at the other middle schools.
That is what is going on at Lawson, where kids are kind of dabbling in a wheel, or they go to choir or band or orchestra.
Yeah.
At some of the other sites, it's a little different, where the wheel is not going out to elective teachers. It's actually being taught by sixth grade teachers.
That's what we're doing
And
at Lawson.
Then they choose what they're going to teach. So if I'm a sixth grade teacher, I might be teaching inventions. And for a semester, because I love inventions. And so I'm going to be teaching that for a semester. And then they'll move on to a different sixth grade teacher. I know at Hyde, they actually go out to the seventh and eighth grade, the regular electives. So they are the same as the seventh and eighth graders as far as so that's what we're really trying to kind of shore up here is see if we can get everybody on the same page and make sure that all of our sixth graders are getting an equitable experience.
Okay. And then I'm sure you're already thinking about this as well, but at least in my experience with like the wheel, because they can only choose 3 or 4 of them, but then there's so many choices. It's almost like more disappointing that they can't like choose more of them because they're interested in all of them. And so I guess I'm wondering about, or just thinking about that balance, right? Of like, what is it called? Paralysis. Paralysis analysis, right? Like when there's so many options, sometimes it makes it can have a negative impact too. Not that I wouldn't want to limit it. I mean, I still think that it's a good thing, but I guess it's just something to think about. And then I'm thinking about the kids that don't choose the wheel and kind of go on that music track or whatever. um, they kind of are there and then they don't usually waver from that.
Actually, we have several students who do the wheel in sixth grade and then join band or orchestra in seventh.
Okay.
We just had concerts this week, Tuesday and Wednesday night, and I would say that beginning band and orchestra is almost 50-50, seventh and sixth graders.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it really doesn't inhibit them from trying the wheel in sixth grade and then deciding to do music when they start seventh grade. We even have a couple of eighth graders in beginning band and orchestra.
Oh, wow. That's good to know.
Yeah.
And also to keep in mind that right now, currently, a lot of our sixth graders only have one elective. This is really that expansion that they're going to have two electives, or, the wheel is going to expand. So whatever they have now, it's going to be an expansion when we initially get to having
So they could
them
do a
have two
full year
electives.
and a
They,
semester.
and I think that, to Sarah's, we're doing the surveys. We want to find out a little bit more what the interest is, but make it common at each of the sites versus each one currently does kind of their own method with the sixth graders.
Yeah. And we have that also. We have several seventh and eighth graders that are doing a year-long elective, but then they're also doing one of the applied arts electives. Yeah.
And that was the benefit of having the second elective.
You bet.
Right.
So now they're able to kind of branch out and experience more fun classes.
Yeah.
That's great. And I guess as you're looking at rolling this out or next steps, what would you say are the points of tension or things that you need to think about, or as you're kind of like what you were saying, certain things you have to shore up?
I think the hardest part is going to be getting all of them, and you can say, but getting all of the middle schools to kind of decide on what our sixth grade program looks like and what's best for sixth graders. It's difficult when you're at a site, you've been at a site for a while and you really love the way that your site runs things, and then trying to look at other opportunities and then getting everybody kind of on the same page. So I think that's probably going to be the most difficult, but once we get there, and I'm confident we will, I think it will be smooth sailing after that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, and even just the shift to the seventh period day, of course, when you bring that up to staffs who have had 6 period days for years and years and years, there's a little bit of panic, a little bit of hesitancy, but we did it, and nobody is complaining about it. They're all happy. So so I think it's just that same thing. We just need to make sure that we're listening. We need to make sure that we're doing due diligence with getting input from everyone. And then we go ahead and we make the best decision. And then everybody just kind of comes along, because it doesn't take long for them to realize that this is the right thing that we need to be doing. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay.
I have
go
one
ahead.
thing. So this is definitely, I think we are keen, right? I think that's what we hear from everyone. So when would we know, or what is the true next steps, right? So these are some more things which you have put it, but kind of like, is it like next academic year we are going to start a little bit more expanding, or is it linked to the electives and stuff like
I
that?
would see probably within the next couple months in the spring, we would be bringing this back as another study session or at a board advance to update where we are and to then talk about what next steps are. So some of these that are listed on here, the survey, the visiting, that's all going to take place here in the next couple months. And so we will be able to plan what our next steps are, as well as continue to look at funding, at the same time, we'll talk about the bond. So we'll have to see how the steps move forward. I do think what Sarah mentioned is just bringing the middle schools and really talking about what that sixth grade program is going to look like is a big step that we will need to do over here in these next couple months.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thanks, Erin. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I
Great.
think,
Great information. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, guys.
and I think we will take a break until 6 o'clock when we reopen for session.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
You wanted.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm calling our meeting back to order. We are back from our study session and really glad to see so many of our students and our families here with us tonight. Our next agenda item is the flag salute, and we have a student from Stevens Creek Elementary who will be leading us today. So welcome, Gordon Wang. I'll invite you to go to the microphone.
Please stand for the flag salute. Please put your right hand on your heart. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated.
Thank you, Gordon. And our next agenda item is a school presentation. And so we are very, very excited to have students from Stevens Creek Elementary here with us. And I will pass the time over to Principal Melissa Mason.
All righty, can you hear me? Good evening, members of the board and executive cabinet members here. Over the last years at Stevens Creek, we have maintained a school goal around developing students' sense of belonging. Tonight, we are here to highlight one of our programs, which is an attempt to foster just this, that sense of belonging for our students. We originally had this grand plan of being able to welcome you outside, but we're making do. But as you can even just see from the signs and the enthusiasm that these students bring, it really makes a difference when we have somebody that's just here to, those times when you come into a meeting and you're going, oh, I'm not sure if I have it in me. This sort of breaks that pattern. And that's what we hope to do for our students and staff members and even parents, just by something as simple as letting someone know that we're glad that they're here, that everybody belongs. So obviously this is something that I'm particularly proud of as the principal of Stevens Creek. Number one, we get to see, as I said, how something so simple can make such a big difference in a day. And the second reason is really because this club was something that started out at a classroom level. And it grew over the last couple of years. So for that, I just want to acknowledge Mrs. Tiffany Santana. This was something that she originally started. She sparked this a couple of years ago and has really continued this program going and supporting the students in maintaining this at our site. We also have Ms. Wasila Chalali here this evening, who has come on board as this program has expanded. We rely on the support of our staff to make special clubs like this happen for our students. But to tell you about our kindness club, our kindness squad, I'm actually going to leave that to our students. So I do want to, they are all here. So when I sort of say their name, if you could just raise your hand so you can see who everyone is. But I just want to acknowledge these are our student leaders, what we would call the students that really started the program, that they're at their core. So for some of them, they're in 5th grade now. It started when they were in 3rd grade. So the others that are in 4th grade now, they've really helped to expand the program. So I just want to acknowledge Anisha. Ava is here tonight. Blake. Emmy. Gordon. Maxim. Noe. Reed, Rhea, Ruhi, and Sophia. So with that, I am going to turn it over to the students to share about our kindness squad.
What? What is the Kindness Squad? A team of student leaders with the sole purpose of inspiring and carrying out acts of kindness throughout school. We look for ways to spread kindness to other students and the staff. By coming up with activities during our Kindness Squad meetings, we try to incorporate the whole school in these plans that usually make everybody feel better about themselves. And welcome. Yeah.
Where it began in 2021. When we were in third grade, we started this as a part of a class project. We brainstormed ways to build community at school and promote kindness.
We decided we would greet parents and kids at the drop-off area and by the kindergarten yard in the morning. It started out as just our classroom, and then it grew to eventually be all of third grade.
And now I'm really glad that it's turning into a club because I've always wanted to do it again. And now that I'm in fifth grade, I finally have the chance to do it again without leaving the school.
Yeah.
Who's going next? When we were in third grade, we expanded the club to include projects like Light Up the World with Kindness and Kindness Rocks. We also did things like secretly clip positive comments to random backpacks using kindness clips. Clips might say, "You are awesome, I'm glad you're here," or "You rock." We even added a kindness skirt for the staff members who work so hard for us. We do Kindness Squad for many reasons. Mainly, it's to make people feel good and spread kindness. Here are some quotes as to why Kindness Squad is so special to us here at Stevens Creek.
We do it to make people feel happy and welcome. The parents and students are happy when they would get out of the car.
It makes people feel welcome and that someone is happy to see them.
It feels nice to make someone's day. It feels nice to me. The teachers do so much, and it is nice to see a smile on their faces.
It feels good making others feel good about themselves.
We were here to share about our Kindness Squad at Stevens Creek, but we are hoping this movement will expand beyond our school. We challenge each person to find a way to spread kindness to someone today. Think of the world we could have made up of kindness. Thank you for your time and allowing us to share about our Kindness Squad. We hope you have a wonderful evening and a happy holidays.
I think that's all, but I do want to just put in a plug. If, as long as weather permitting, in case you want to see it in action, we will have our next morning greeting on Wednesday. So the last day before break, at about 8:30 is when the students will be greeting the rest of the students, staff, and families. So if you wanted to see it in person, I do invite you to join.
Great.
And thank you, students. You all did wonderful.
So we want to thank you, Principal Mason and Ms. Santana and Mr. Lawley, and to all of our student leaders, to Anisha, Ava, Blake, Emmy, Gordon, Maxim, Noe, Reed, Rhea, Ruhi, and Sophia, right? So I want to thank you for coming tonight and for sharing with us about the Kindness Squad, and about kindness clips, about kindness rocks, and everything else that makes Stevens Creek Elementary so special, and the way that you're making everyone feel welcome and included. So we would love to take a photo with you and with your signs. So I'm going to invite you guys to come to the middle and invite staff to come up. And parents, you're welcome to get up and get into a better position to take a photo, parents, if you'd like. Okay. It's always great to have our students come, our families come. Thanks again for coming. And we are going to move on to our next. We're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is our board reorganization. And so I am going to relinquish the gavel to Superintendent Yao so that she can begin the process for nominating new board officers.
You. So tonight is our annual reorganization, and at this time, I would like to call for a motion for a new president to serve for the remainder of our 23-24 and into our 24-25 school year. So at this time, do we have anyone that would like to make a motion for our president?
I would like to make a motion. I would like to nominate Phyllis Vogel to be our next president for 2024.
Thank you. Thank you, Sylvia. Do I have a second?
I like the second. Oh.
Thank you, Jerry. And we will do a roll call vote.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye.
Trustee Leon.
Aye.
Congratulations, Phyllis. I will properly pass this gavel over, but we also have a special guest here that I wanted to invite up to the podium. Phyllis's son and daughter-in-law are here to recognize the work that Phyllis.
No idea. And they've driven over from Santa Cruz. Aw, Betty, get up here.
She's afraid of public speaking.
So well, my son Kevin and his wife Bev. And I'm so glad you're here. I'm gonna cry, me.
Thanks. Well, good evening, board, superintendent, staff. Thank you for having us tonight. Mom, President Vogel, congratulations. Yes, we came over from Santa Cruz. This is Mom's fourth year of her fourth term on the board, and so it's a very special occasion, I think, for her this evening. And so we wanted to come over and show our support and congratulate her and show our love. And we have a little bouquet of flowers for you. So, yeah. So here you go.
Okay, so I have to do hugs before I can continue. Surprise. Oh, I love you guys. Yeah. And you know what? This meeting is going to be riveting. But you found the one. I think this is going to be the most important part of the meeting. Oh. Yeah.
Thank you for indulging us, everybody.
You know what, I'm going to take a point of privilege. Can we get a picture for the three of you, please?
Well, can we get a picture for the three of us with the board?
Oh, well, you do both.
Sure.
Or both would be good. That when I was sworn in for my last term, which was now 3 years ago, it was on Zoom. I have to tell this story before you leave, Kevin. So it was on Zoom and Kevin swore me in.
I remember.
And I complimented him because he was dressed nicely in a suit and tie. He sent me a picture of what he really looked like. I called it his Zoom suit. So he was all dressed on the top and he had sweats on. So that was the Zoom suit.
Mom's never stopped embarrassing you.
That's right. Okay, so moving right along, I'm now entertaining
nominations for board vice president. Do we have a nomination?
Yes, I'm nominating Jerry Liu for the vice president position.
Okay. Very good for you. Any other nominations?
I'll second it.
Oh, we have to have a second.
Yeah.
Rattled. Okay. All right, so moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye.
Trustee Leon.
Aye.
Congratulations, Jerry.
Thank you.
And now we need nominations for board clerk. Is there a nomination for board clerk?
I nominate Ava.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye.
Trustee Leon.
Aye.
Okay, congratulations, Ava.
Thank you.
And there's one more.
There is. So this is the representative for the county committee. And I can read a little bit so you understand what your role would be. The governing board of each school district shall annually, at its initial meeting, select one of its members as its representative, who shall have one vote for each member to be elected to the county committee as provided by Article 1. So they do not have to attend any meetings, but when they do their committee vote, whoever is our representative would cast the vote for our district.
So they don't serve on the committee.
They do not serve
cast
on the
vote.
committee.
Got it. Okay, is there a nomination for county committee?
I nominate Satish.
Is there a second?
And I'll second the motion.
Okay, roll call.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye.
Trustee Leon.
Aye.
Okay, and
Then there's also an alternative for that position.
okay, all right, do we have a nomination for the alternative?
The Sylvia. I nominate Sylvia for that.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right. Roll call.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye.
Trustee Leon.
Aye.
Okay, so as outgoing president, Sylvia, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. It's been a year. Honestly, it's been a great year, and I want to thank each and every one of you for just the way that we've been able to work together as a board. And I want to thank each of our executive cabinet, our superintendent, all the staff that have done such an amazing job this year. I think when I think about 2023, when we talked about it in 2022, we talked about this year being a year of recovery. We talked about, the transitions that we were coming out of, from consolidating schools, from moving into, extended learning, all of these things that we were doing to really get out of pandemic and get out of these times of some turbulence and some transitions. And instead, I feel like we've been thriving this year. And it's been really, really good. We've had good budget issues. We've been able to even out the middle school electives. We've been able to offer new programs and put in new staff and provide more support for the students. And really just kudos to all of the staff, to our leadership team at the district level for doing all the things that you guys have done this year. And really just thank you to each of you as board members, really being a part of the team and making my year as president really great. So thank you.
Well, you have done an awesome job, and we have a little something for you, and I'm going to go first, and then I'll let the rest of the board members speak. But for those of you who don't know, we have a tradition that we give the outgoing president a children's book. And so the book chosen this year is a board book, and it's called A is for Awesome. 23 iconic women who changed the world. So there are 22 iconic women that are mentioned, and the last page, the 23rd woman, if I can get it open, is a mirror. So it's Sylvia. So Sylvia is the 23rd iconic woman who changed the world. S is for Sylvia. I asked each of the board members and the superintendent to come up with an S word that describes Sylvia. And then I wrote a poem, and I did not use ChatGPT. So this is my poem. S is for Sylvia. We thought of lots of S words, but which ones to describe you? There were so many options, we could only pick a few. Supportive came from Stacy, self-confident from Satish. You always listen patiently, accepting thoughts from each. Ava's word was selfless, Jerry said sincere. When you and Stacy, with you and Stacy steering us, we knew we had no fear. Phyllis picked a lot of words to make this poem rhyme. Stellar, sage, and superstar are more that came to mind. You surely are superior. We can all agree. You led us with superb skill in 2023.
Thank you, guys. I love this. Thank you so much.
Okay, would anyone else like to say something to Sylvia? Satish?
Yeah, I can always say, and Sylvia, really, I think everything is there in that, right? I think it is truly, we believe in that. That's why this is, so many words came there. And thank you for your leadership, and it's been great working with you. And really, I want to appreciate your how detailed you are when you are talking, and you collect a lot of data before coming here, and your passion to pass it to us. Okay, whether it's interesting or not, you make us interesting. Right? So that's great, and we'll continue working together. And thanks for all your support and leadership.
Sylvia, I think you'll be relieved that you don't have to keep on going like this. It's Phyllis's job now. And appreciate you going out to all the community events and the time that you take to respond to all the emails, from questions to comments from our public. And I think that's really great and wonderful of you, and carrying that positively. And definitely you come to the meetings super prepared with all your notes. And we see that in your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for your year of service and the strong leadership of the board. I feel like you really hit it out of the park this year. You, in addition to leading us, right, you're serving on CSBA, leading the not just our school district, but the entire the districts across the state. I was thinking about what I wanted to say, and what are the things I appreciate about you. It was such a long list. Thought I'd just pick one, and it's really the meticulous way that you, the way you approach leadership. The meetings are so well meticulously planned. Those of you who you don't see the emails that Sylvia writes to respond to the folks that write us, it's so thoughtful. She doesn't use form letters. Each one is well crafted. It's really addressing the points and then following up with the requests that we get. Sometimes we talk about it here. Sometimes you follow up with staff, and just the amount of, just I picked the word sincere because I was thinking about the way you approach service and how you gave so much of yourself to serving the district and the children of this district. So thank you so much for all this, and thank you to your family for sharing her with us in the past year. And yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
And I appreciate all you've done. And you have big shoes to fill. I don't know. I'm a little nervous about this next year because you've done such an awesome job. But I especially appreciate your contribution that you're making at the state level. I just think it's so important for Cupertino to have a place at the table, and we do. And I just think it's awesome that you're giving the time and the energy and your skill and expertise to a wider audience than just Cupertino. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
So do you want to introduce your family?
Oh, sure. Sure, we can do that. So my very opinionated daughter is on the floor with really great ideas. She has great ideas. Samantha, she's back from her first year at UCLA. And then my husband Brian is sitting back there too. So, and yeah, thank you very much to both of them for letting me be on loan for this year. So thank you.
Do you want to take a picture or just them first before we come up?
Maybe
Sure.
get a picture of us at the dais with you in the middle.
Sure, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was fun.
That was really nice.
All
Thank
right,
you.
so now we have to do the business of the board. So let's move on to communication. Do we have anyone, Erin, speaking from our employee organizations?
We do. We have CEA President Kate Lee.
Okay, welcome, Kate.
Want to get a picture, Kate?
Good evening. Thank you so much for your service as president of the board, Sylvia, for this past year. You're right, there has been so much progress, and I've seen the board really working together to help achieve that for our students and our employees at our district. So really appreciate it. And thank you for your listening. And as Jerry said, the time you take to respond to emails that you get from our community and from our teachers, it really means a lot to us. Really appreciate it. And enjoy your free time, your extra time that you have next year. And Phyllis, it's so wonderful to have you as our president for this upcoming year. I love that both of you had your families with you to honor you both in this wonderful time. And tonight, I'm introducing our focus tonight to hear from our teachers, and you may have gotten some emails from them this week about middle school. So our middle school director, Michelle Mandeville, will be speaking. She was going to be here tonight, but she's unable to make it, so she's going to speak to us virtually. And she hasn't been in our district long, but I was so surprised when I found out she doesn't have like 20 years in her, just because she understands so much of what's going on in our middle schools and is really synced into our students' needs. So I think Erin will help get her linked up. Thank you.
Hello. Hi. I suppose I start speaking now, I would assume. I haven't done this virtual version. Sorry, guys.
Yes, you're on. We can hear you and we can see you. So Sally forth.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Michelle Mandeville, and I am the CEA Middle School Director, and I also teach 8th grade language arts and social studies at Lawson. I have been with our district for only 4 years, but I've taught since 2007 at both the elementary and middle school levels. I'm speaking today because I believe that supported educators equals successful students. I'd like to give you some examples from both my own experience at Lawson, as well as speaking about what our other middle school teachers in the district have said. CUSD is helping to promote student success by offering 7-period school days to most students, as well as 2 prep periods for teachers. This has helped to equalize the experiences of both teachers and students at all middle school sites, such as allowing CMS teachers to continue having a 7-period day, but only teaching 5 out of the 7 periods. This has also helped with some of our marginalized populations who previously were attending 0-period classes just so that they could also have an elective. With these new 7-period days at all sites, the district has also provided both Read 180 and Math 180 to support students who are below grade level. While we have all appreciated what CUSD has done to support our middle school kids, there are still many areas where CUSD needs to do more to support all middle school students and staff. For example, one current issue is the duty day, which starts at 7:50 a.m. while our bell schedule starts at 8 a.m. For teachers who do not have first period prep, this means you end up with a total of about 5 minutes between the start of your duty day and students beginning to line up outside of your door for the start of class. Because arrival at 7:50 leads to being stuck in drop-off traffic, many teachers are faced with having to be there 10 or more, many more, minutes before duty begins, just to make it to class on time and feel prepared to begin with students at 8 a.m. A second issue is related to class sizes. For example, at Lawson, this year we decreased by 1 PE teacher, but we also have Read 180, Math 180, and Boost. All of these support classes have very small class sizes, as they should, and they're just one of the things that impact the size of our PE and other general education classes by making them much larger than in previous years. Lawson 6th graders also only currently attend 6 periods, thus the start of their day is 2nd period. In addition, some 7th and 8th grade students also only attend 6 periods. We've recently heard that this could likely continue at some sites into the next school year, but this is not the case at other sites like CMS, where all students currently attend 7 periods and have for years. There are also some sites who use modified block schedules, while others do not. This may seem like a way to offer autonomy to sites, but if 7 periods is too much right now for 6th graders at some sites, why is it required at others? And should all middle school students really be required to take 7 periods? Some decisions like this need to be both transparent and equitable across all middle school sites. A final issue that all sites are having is with student behavior issues and discipline. Even if this behavior is presented in different ways from one campus to another, why is the district not providing the same support for discipline at all 5 middle school sites? We need to be more proactive than reactive to the issues happening at some of our campuses. While CUSD is struggling with discipline like all other districts in the country, how it is being handled and supported is different from site to site. Currently, only some of the middle schools have received extra support staff to handle discipline and monitor behavior. At Lawson, we are also struggling with student behavior, but here it often tends to be less physical and more with using words or technology to cause harm to others. We have also seen an uptick in cheating here as well. We have struggled with getting our students to take the SEL lessons seriously, and at times feel as though the consequences do nothing to deter the same behavior. Using programs like PBIS and restorative practices are very time-consuming for all parties. And if this is CUSD's continued direction, more staff to support and more training for teachers and principals is very necessary. CUSD middle school teachers need to feel supported and heard in order to effectively serve all of our students' needs. This requires open communication between all shareholders when dealing with what is best for our students' long-term mental health and providing the resources needed at all campuses. All sites should have the same number of administrators as well as student success liaisons. At times, it feels like we are just waiting for things to get tough enough for the district to take notice and provide what has already been provided at other schools. With this behavioral crisis has also come an increase in the need for mental health support for all students on campus. Our students need their school to provide both support and clear consequences in order for them to learn and grow into empathetic and caring young adults. The way to achieve this is by taking a hard look at class sizes, the teacher duty day, and student bell schedules, and lastly, student discipline protocols across all 5 middle schools. I hope this helps every board member understand and take action to ensure educators are supported so every middle school student can have the success they deserve. Thank you for your time and good night.
Thank you so much. Did you have anything more, Kate? Okay, all right, thank you so much, both of you. Anybody else to speak under employees, Erin?
No.
Okay. All right, moving on to public comment. Do we have any people under public comment?
We do. We have one.
Okay, so public comment is an opportunity for the public to speak on items that are not on the agenda. We will not respond, but if there's a question, staff will follow up at a later time. You will have 3 minutes.
Angela Zipser, if you could please raise your hand. Go ahead, Angela.
Echo.
Hi, do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
To the members of the CUSD board, hi, my name is Angela Zipser, and I am a middle school teacher at CMS. I have been with our district for 21 years. I'm speaking today because I believe that supported successful students. At the end of last school year, I was not feeling safe about working at CMS and really desired to move to a different site. So this school year, I was pleased to see we had 2 student success liaisons present on campus. It was also wonderful to have academic interventions in reading and math based on iReady scores the first week of school. This has provided support to a little extra help to be on grade level. Lastly, it feels really good to finally be compensated an extra 20% pay for the 6th period in the last 7 years at CMS. Unfortunately, I still see a need for another assistant principal on campus. Since we've gone from 2 to 1 AP, the number of students showing lack of respect to staff has increased, as well as the number of school sites. I also believe there needs to be more consistency among campus disciplines. It doesn't make sense that at one middle school, a student receives campus cleanup or after school 15 for assault, while at another school is suspended for a day. There should be 0 tolerance for any type of assault. In addition, there needs to be major reconsideration before mod to severe kids are sent out to general education classes without a one-to-one trained IA. I'm currently teaching a 6th grade wheel class with 26 students, where 2 of the students are mild to mod and 6 of them are mod to severe. The mild to mod students are learning to work with others on group-based projects and greatly benefiting from their experience in the gen ed class. However, the mod to severe are nonverbal and need separate resources. These students range from Down syndrome to mobility impaired to having extreme sensitivities to noise and light. The purpose of their placement in the gen ed class is not happening. They are physically present and on a good day provided guidance with preschool level coloring, counting, and letter recognition. This is when there's an IA who works with the student to do something productive instead of passively there next to them. It would make more sense for these students to stay in a separate classroom with the proper resources. Even if a one-to-one IA is not in their IEP, the gen ed class needs an individual IA so they can do some of the gen ed activities with proper support. For example, due to shortage of IAs, some students are unable to join a gen ed PE class. 6th grade, even though there are 3 IAs going with them for PE, 3 of the 6 students need a one-to-one IA because 2 students are nonverbal and the other student needs individual support. The PE teacher is really trying to support these students, but there are not always enough IAs or BIs present when they take leave and you don't get subs for IAs. At the same time, in a 7th grade PE class, a group of 3 mods.
Your time is up. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, the audio was a little rough here. We were unable to hear part of your comments. So if you could submit your comments in writing or send them to us at board@cusdk8.org, that would be helpful.
Oh, mine is.
The echo.
I don't know, want to just double check. Someone's connected.
That wouldn't have caused me.
Someone's computer is connected to the audio. You guys aren't, you don't.
I will reach out to her by email and let her know that the audio was not good and ask her to submit her comments to us. Unless you let me know, Nancy, if they come through, if her comments come through under comments. Okay. All right. Anything else under public comments? No. Okay. All right, let's move on then to the superintendent's report. Superintendent Yao.
All right, thank you. We are going to bring up a picture on the screen if we can. Kind of staying in line with the theory presentation earlier from Stevens Creek, which was unplanned about kindness. I just wanted to share an example of the amazing things that our staff are capable of. And I think, this time of year, we're always so thankful of things and just wanting to express my gratitude that this happens without anyone soliciting or asking for it. So last week, unfortunately, we had a student from CMS that was hit by a car on his bicycle while he was traveling to school. Very fortunately that the student was fine. But 3 of our electricians went out to the school site and attempted to fix the bike because the bike was not okay. They were not able to fix the bike. And so they took that upon themselves to go out and buy a brand new bike for this student. So just wanted to capture that. That was sent to me on Friday afternoon. I thought, these are just 3 wonderful employees and wonderful people. And when you think about all the craziness in the world, it's just sometimes you need to be grounded and realize that there's good, kind, caring people out there. And so Stephen Pinero, Ezekiel Mascaro, and Rafael Mascaro are all longtime employees in the district and just continue to do amazing things and so often don't get recognized for it. But I just felt like this really needed to be highlighted, and a huge thank you for them.
And will you please extend thank you from the board to them as
Absolutely.
well? That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for
The
sharing
student
with us.
was ecstatic when he saw the new bike.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Really nice. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have the consent calendar. We need a motion.
I mean,
Thank you, Sylvia.
Second.
Thank you, Ava. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye.
Trustee Young.
Next item is information, and we have the proposed board meeting calendar. I assume that's you.
Will be.
Superintendent Yao.
So it is that time of year to start planning ahead for the 24-25 school year. So we are bringing forward a proposed tentative board meeting schedule, and we are trying to stay consistent with 2 meetings per month, excluding July. And our pattern is we would have a regular board meeting, and then the second board meeting would either be a study session attached to the board meeting or one of our board advances. And so for the most part, we try to stay true to the second and fourth Thursday of the month, but you'll see there are some deviations there. Notably in June of 2025, we try to avoid Thursday because that is the high school graduation. So if we know of any of those kind of dates, we may adjust. October is a little bit skewed only because we know that there is one of our large national conferences, our Portrait of a Learner, that a large group will be going to. And so we did shift our board advance to a week earlier. Otherwise, for the most part, we do try to stay to that second and fourth. So this is for information, input, and then we would bring it back for approval at an upcoming board meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions about the calendar? Okay, so this will come back to us.
I'll bring it back as consent.
As a consent item. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And the next item, do we have public comment on this?
No, we do not.
Okay. The next is the district student enrollment projections, and I assume that's also you,
It
Superintendent?
is. I will kick it off. This time of year when we have run our projections, and we do use an outside agency that works closely with Mahmood and his department. And so we do want to bring forward where we are with our current enrollment and where we're projected out for the next 10 years. And so this is from the district level. We aren't going into the specificity of each school site, although we're happy to share that information in a Friday memo with you. This is really more looking at the trends that are going across board for our K through 8. I did want to highlight that in this information, TK is not included at this point because it is new and it's still continue to expand for the next 2 years. So it is focused on the K-8. It incorporates all of the housing that we are aware of and when that will go into place through our 6 cities. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mahmood, and he will introduce our guest from Decision Insight / Power School.
All right, good evening, board. So Ron with Power School is going to be joining us to present. We are in the middle of promoting him so he can present the slides, and he'll be sharing with us shortly. Just give me 1 second. Ron, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. And I'm going to stop sharing right now. And then go ahead if you want to try presenting now.
Okay, there we are. Mahmood, could you just confirm you can see the PowerPoint?
Yep, you're up on the screen and the presentation's up running.
Excellent. Well, very good evening, members of the Board of Education, Superintendent Yao, Cupertino families. I'm very pleased to be here with you this evening. As mentioned, I'm going to be walking through essentially a summary of the enrollment forecasts that our team has generated for the district. And we'll talk about briefly what I'll cover here. Just a quick introduction about us. I'll spend a little bit of time here at the beginning talking about context in terms of a national demographic shifts, and specifically demographic shifts that are impacting the state of California. This is very similar to what we presented last year. many of our clients have told us that they found that context very, very helpful. So we are including that. And then I'll spend a little bit of time talking about our approach and methodology, essentially giving you that context of how we generated these numbers for you. And then we'll walk through the data themselves. Certainly, as we proceed, if the board does have a question, happy to take those as we come, or as those questions come up, and we'll have some time for question and answers at the end as well. A little bit briefly about me. I've been in the working with districts specifically with enrollment forecasting, new housing research, and demographics for 14 years. And I was the general manager, COO of Decision Insight. And 3 years ago, we did become part of PowerSchool. PowerSchool is very well known for their student information system. But today, PowerSchool has nearly 20 different solutions that cover a whole array of areas: LMS, assessments, analytics, in addition to that student information system, and enrollment analytics, formerly Decision Insight, is a part of that. We do have a significant presence in the state of California. That's because we originally started in the state, so we are very, very privileged to have well over 100 districts in the state that we work with. And why that's relevant is because we really do have a very deep understanding of what is going on demographically in the state, and specifically in the area of declining enrollment, just what a challenge that is for many districts. We'll dive right into this component. And one of the things to understand about enrollment forecasting is that it's always, we're always comparing things to what we have experienced historically. And in the recent decades, we have had this shift, and what has resulted is essentially fewer school-aged individuals at any given time. And the two data points that really speak to that is when people start families, and then when they do, how large those families are. So generational time is one component of this. In 1970, the average, and these are all national averages, the average woman had their first child at 21 years old. Today, that's nearly 30. It's actually about 29, just under 30. So there's almost a decade there where people are starting families later in life. Birth rates are often noted in the area of enrollment forecasting. The technical term is actually fertility rates. And in the United States, our fertility rate is actually declining. It peaked in the year 2000. And we're at an estimate of 1.63. And there was actually just some recent data released by the US Census Bureau that if we did not have any international immigration, the United States would actually start to decline in overall population. And that is driven by these two pieces. So where this really affects school districts is net migration. And that is essentially how many people move into an area versus how many people move out. And I'll show you some additional data. But working with districts all across the state, nearly every single district is declining due to these factors. The exceptions are those districts that have very, very significant new housing. And we're talking about at a scale of thousands of homes and subdivisions. And almost universally, those areas are where there is a lot of available land to develop. So Sacramento and areas, certain parts of Riverside, San Bernardino County, San Diego, and that's just because they do have that, that availability of land, which is key in that facet. Another huge piece is the rate of growth in the California population. So post World War II was really the boom time in California with significant net migration into the state. And you can see this trend here is really pretty consistent in the sense that that has continually declined. And actually, this particular data here, which was provided by the California Department of Finance, was done pre-pandemic. So these blue bars are actually projected. So we do have data that has come out post that, which actually this has accelerated a little bit. And just recently, you may have noticed in the news, California actually switched to a state that was losing overall population, only by a few percentage points. But when you compare that to what we've experienced historically in the state, that is significant. The California Department of Finance has put out some guidance that by the year 2030, total public school age, the total number of school age, the population of public education students will decline by 11%. But being that we're the largest state in the union, that is not going to be universally felt. So this graph here, this chart is really showing that, as I mentioned, San Bernardino, Riverside, certain areas of Sacramento, there may be some districts that are growing that offset that. And you can see here, Los Angeles County, where I happen to live, is at the very bottom, and Santa Clara also. And that is really tied back to the fact that these are pretty developed areas already, and they just don't have that availability of land to increase the housing stock. So, as I mentioned, factors that influence a school district's enrollment, certainly new housing. We'll be walking through that a little bit. The difference between the highest grade cohort, in your case, that would be 8th grade, and the incoming cohort. We still do measure that against kindergarten, being that that is still the larger of the two between TK and kindergarten. And then, of course, we look at inter and intra-district transfers. That is factored into our grades, but we're really looking at students that may reside outside of your district that choice into your district. We spend a lot of time looking at that and looking at if that is increasing or decreasing, because that could have an impact certainly on your enrollment. I mentioned a couple of these facets. Our platform will actually generates 2 10-year enrollment forecasts. They actually begin at your elementary level, and we aggregate that up for your middle and district total. So we're looking at how students matriculate through your grades. We certainly spend a lot of time focused on kindergarten, because that is that first cohort that I mentioned. And then we also are looking at other factors, and certainly the economy, the housing market, being that interest rates are fairly high, anomalous events, and I would include the pandemic in part of that. Any sort of unusual event can have an impact, and transition kindergarten. The superintendent was right. Some of these slides don't show TK, but in your by school, by grade forecast, we are showing that. And in a later slide, you'll see TK. We are modeling that expansion of eligibility, which then will end in a few years. So you'll see that in the numbers specifically around TK, that number is growing because of that expanded eligibility. Couple of things to note when you're looking at the projections. The conservative, the model, the algorithms behind the model, the conservatives, they are designed to always show the most conservative view. In a declining district, the conservative will always show the most significant decline, or the greatest amount of decline, whereas the moderate will be a little bit more tempered. And that is also true of the new housing component. So we gather, and I'm going to walk through how we do the new housing, but in the conservative forecast, we do push some of the timing out on some projects very, very slightly. It's usually pushed into the next year. An example, if a developer is saying we're going to build 100 homes, in the moderate forecast, we take that 100, we assume based on what they tell us that they're going to sell all 100 in the year they say they're going to. In the conservative, we may take 70 in the first year and put 30 in the next year. That's factoring in a reality that a lot of developers are very bullish with their forecasts. And in reality, there's delays, there's permitting problems sometimes, and oftentimes they don't sell all of the projects or all of the units they think they're going to in a year. So we temper the conservative in the new housing area a little bit. So we're now going to jump into looking a little bit at your recent 4-year history. So the easiest way to look at this is if you had 100 students 4 years ago in kindergarten, today you would have 91. In the grade bands K through 5, you would have 83 of 100, and 6-8, 87%, and district-wide 85. You'll see in the projections that we are slowing the rate of decline in your outer years. So I'll speak to that in just a moment. and give you some additional context around that. This is looking very similarly at the same piece, which is year to year though. So in kindergarten in 21, if you had 100, you would have 90 in the 22 school year. And then you do see this increase in 23, which is positive. There are still a lot of areas in the state that are normalizing post-pandemic. And so we would expect that to continue the further we get away from that anomalous event. Let me do this. I want to annotate, but I don't know if I have that ability. Okay. Grades K through 8, and that was what I was mentioning before, looking at your highest grade cohort, essentially the students that would be exiting your district and going to high school, compared to how many kindergartens you're bringing in. So in every situation where a larger cohort is exiting and you're not replacing those students with an equal or greater size kindergarten cohort, a district would experience decline. So you're seeing here from the previous year, 21, 69%, 68%, and then we jump to 80. So there is some nuance here. I'll suss this out a little bit. So as I mentioned originally, we're experiencing some changes with net migration in California. And over the long term, that will normalize. And so what you will see in our projections in the outer years is that rate of growth slowing, or the rate of decline, I'm sorry, slowing. And that is because, again, that delta between the grades exiting and the grades coming in are going to get closer together. And so that rate of decline will slow, which is great. This table is essentially just showing where you may have some unusual changes between cohorts. So students going from K to 1. In your situation, we have a slight increase. So you're actually bringing in more first graders than you had in kindergarten, exactly 100 from first to second, and so on and so forth. But then you do see there's a just very slight percentage, couple of percentage points of a drop off as students advance through the various grades. So new housing, we conduct all the new housing research. That is the time when we actually will gather all of the data, the raw data from developers and planning agencies. We do that through the summer months all the way up until the beginning of school. We do that intentionally because we want to gather that data very close to the time we generate the enrollment projections. And then we will drill into all that information, and we're looking at a lot of information such as price point, other sales in the area. All that raw data is collected, and you can see here, this is a listing of all these project names and the type of housing that is proposed to be built. So we break this out into multifamily, which would be condos and apartments, single unit attached homes, which are typically townhomes or maybe duplexes, and then your detached single family homes. The area here, this certainly the hills at Valco, due to just the size of the number of units, is something that we're closely monitoring. And there's also been a slight change in the Westport Cupertino. Unfortunately, I should also mention, this is the conservative view. So this would be the situation where we may move some or a portion of those units into the outer years. So that you may notice that if you see that compared to the moderate. But Westport Cupertino is certainly one where we've seen some change. So that is of note. This graph here is showing just the total number of units that are expected to be sold and occupied over these years. This looks very dramatic. A footnote here would be that it's very probable that developments may come online, and that's just pretty far out into the future, and we're not able to actually get good data around that yet. So this is a very common thing we see. As things progress, you would more than likely see those new projects emerge that we would then factor into your projections. We're showing the map here. More than likely, this is probably pretty hard to see via Zoom. The only thing of note here is we do map all of these projects, and that's how we can allocate these developments to the appropriate elementary and middle school. So the location of it, and an assumption is made in our forecast that if a development is entirely within a elementary or middle school zone, that's where we allocate those students to. Certainly, if the board were to enact some sort of policy that would be different than that assumption, we can model that appropriately. This is just a look at the number of students generated by the new housing that I just mentioned. This top line is the total aggregate impact over the 10-year future. And then the annual here is on the bottom. So you can see that there is a moderate view and a conservative view. Something to note that the total number here, you can see there's a little bit of a difference in the total number. That's because we push those projects out slightly in the conservative view. So some of those may push out beyond the 10-year time horizon. So you'll see a little slight difference there. So now we're diving into the projections themselves. So this report here, you do see that TK line, and you do see those numbers increasing. And then once that eligibility date stops expanding, that levels off, and we will then forecast it like we do every other grade band. One note that we're very closely monitoring, we do with all of our clients, is certainly your kindergarten cohort that is incoming for the reasons I mentioned before. You did see this in the conservative forecast. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned all of this here, 24 and forward is projected. This 20, 21, 22, and 23 are your actual historical enrollments. These are not projected. And you did see here a slight jump up to 1212 from 1165. So one of the things we'll be closely monitoring is if you stay in the 1200s and stay higher, that would certainly have an impact on your projections in the outer years. We'll move to the moderate forecast. Very, very similar. This is here where you see that there is a slight decline, with the one exception of being 2028, where you're really stable, but we're talking about less than a percentage point. And as I mentioned before, that delta between the kindergarten incoming and exiting. So, oops, keep forgetting this is a PowerPoint. I can't click on it. Here you see a 1327 incoming cohort and 1874 exiting. But we get out to the more outer years, and you can see that gap is narrowing, right? So we have 1243 incoming and 1429 exiting in 27. And so that is one of the reasons why we're modeling that your pace or rate of decline will be tempered a little bit, which is certainly positive. This graph here is just comparing those two forecasts. This is very similar. The way our models work is that the difference between the conservative and moderate is most pronounced out at the 10-year time horizon, because those two will diverge more significantly in the outer years. And our guidance to our counselors, our guidance to our customers is that your actuals, what we would expect is that it would come in between those two in the next 10 years. We're looking at projections again here. This is breaking out those projections into various grade bands. I know that this doesn't align exactly with how you have your schools configured. This is more of a standard report. The things of note here is really looking out at that yellow column, gives you a sense of kind of where the district will be at a 5-year time horizon and at a 10-year time horizon at these different grade levels. And then here at the bottom, you have your overall district represented as well. And then same format, this with the moderate forecast. Again, these percentages are year to year, previous, it's comparing to the previous year. So you can see that you do have a slight uptick in kindergarten and stability in a number of these areas with a few exceptions, notably here in year 7 and 8 in 24. But you're seeing 99s, 100%. That would represent essentially a stable district. This chart does throw some people sometimes. That is because here on our x-axis, we have our grades represented and the total number of students in the y-axis, where the actual years, 5 years out and 10 years out and current, are represented by the color. So the way to glance at this, and the reason we have this in here, is to look if there's any areas of your district where you're going to experience something very, very significant compared to today. And if that guides any decision making, this is just a different way to kind of look at that out into the future at different points in time. And that would bring us to the conclusion of the portion that I prepared, and happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, Mamu, did you have anything to add before we go to board questions? Okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
Hi, Ron, thanks for the update. That was really well done. So the way I'm sort of, one of my takeaways, I guess, after your presentation is it looks like we're going to be reaching some sort of a steady state in about 5 years, because I look at your red line and then the blue line and green line in one of your most recent graphs. And the fact that the 5-year line and the 10-year line is so similar is that basically, there was one way there, the x-axis was the great, yes, that one. The fact that the blue and the black line is so close and so far from our red line, what you're saying here is in about, in about 5 years, we're going to get to some equilibrium or some steady state where it just sort of varies by 1% or 2%. So, am I reading that correctly?
Yes, I think that would be a safe or a accurate characterization. As I mentioned, and this is a little bit of nuance here, and some of our clients have a challenge, because I start the presentation with a lot of demographics, a lot of data around California and how that's affecting districts in the current or the underlying demographic forces that is leading to decline. That said, our model is showing in the future, there will be that narrowing of the delta between how many students that are exiting, that will narrow. So yes, that was your rate of decline is expected to slow. I might add just that there's still going to be very slight decline, more than likely, but it is a return more to stability. It's not as significant as some of our clients have seen in the recent years.
Okay, all right, well, thanks. And then I'm wondering the trends that you're projecting for us, how does that compare with our neighboring districts, say the other school districts in Santa Clara County? Would you say they're similar? Are we declining at a faster rate, slower rate? Do you have any insights on that?
That is something I can, I don't have anything like concrete I've prepared for tonight. That is something that we can certainly look at. Anecdotally, not having done a lot of research, that is very, very similar to, you're very, very similar to a lot of the clients we work with in the state that are experiencing declining enrollment. So my wife, for example, is an administrator in they used to be an 18,000 student district here in Southern California, and today they're about 15,000, and we're projecting them to go down even further. Yes, your circumstances and what we're seeing here are very similar, but I would have to look at specifically districts in your area to say definitively if you are exactly compared to your neighbors.
Sure. Oh, no, thank you. I think that's fine. I'm not really looking for additional work. It's really just trying to see if there was any sort of, are we an outlier? And it doesn't sound like from what you've seen, we're an outlier. We're probably comparable to some group of folks. My last question is, you had showed a line of sort of the conservative and the moderate estimate out to 10 years, a red and black line. So what's the probability? And you mentioned that our likely enrollment is going to fall between those. Is that like a 90% probability, 50% probability? What would you say? What's the statistical probability that our enrollment will fall within one of those two lines? Or I guess between the two lines, more correctly. Yeah.
So that's going to require a nuanced answer. So I would start by saying that every projection is you take the best data you have, and it's a snapshot at a point in time. So, barring any major, major things like a pandemic, a massive downturn in the economy, our expectation. I don't have an exact number I can provide. We have been fortunate enough to work with a lot of clients for longer than 10 years. And so we actually have data on what we projected back then and where they ended up. And I've actually graphed a number of these. And this is a little bit hard to see because they're pretty close together. But you'll see in some years, we're very much closer to the conservative. Some years we're closer to the moderate, but our actuals do come in between those two. So I would say I have a high degree of confidence in this with those assumptions I mentioned. As long as you have that context, that's how I'd answer that.
Okay, all right, maybe just one more.
Sure, go ahead.
So I want to sort of change the topic a little bit from the absolute count to just sort of enrollment balance, right? And you had showed the map with projects, looked like it was outlined in red in certain parts of the district. And I know we've been working on enrollment balance, I guess, and maybe the question might be more for staff. Do the projections look like they may, I know we're working on enrollment balance. Is this likely to cause any sort of problems that we haven't been looking at? Or do you think this is something that's within the bounds of our plans?
I think it falls within our conversations that we've had. As we're looking at some of those outlying years, there are a couple elementary. There is one particularly that does increase in attendance that we hadn't anticipated, but not beyond what they're capable of holding on. What we may want to do is, as the committee, task force committee considers, is do they need to relook at that for the future in the 10 years? Do we want to make some more flexible boundaries so that none of our schools become smaller? When we look at our overall projections, we are able to maintain our commitment of having the 2 classes at each grade level, which I think is super important. And just that stabilization really helps.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Phyllis.
Okay, anybody else? Satish, go ahead.
Thanks for this information. I have only one question. So when you, the last 3 years or 4 years, right, like what you're showing, so how, the projection versus actual, how it was? Okay, so say that, did you change any projection since last year? So now it looks like at least it is stabilized at rate, but did we have, because I was thinking that our last year data, what we had was, we were seeing a steady decrease actually, right? If you see like kind of over 500 per year kind of thing, and very scary way of it's going down. So what significant change happened since then?
Yes, great question. Kindergarten gets a lot of attention, as I mentioned before. The fact that that didn't continue to decline is certainly something that is notable. And the other facet, generating enrollment projections during a pandemic is quite possibly the most difficult thing to do, because you are by definition going through something that is unusual. So we are actually taking in last year and this year, we're taking a longer view, and we have to adjust for the unusual data in 2020. So as I mentioned, what we are seeing in this year, now that we have a full year of data, is really that normalization and kind of a return to normal post-pandemic. We did normalize for some of that during the pandemic, knowing that this was obviously a once in 100-year event. But we are starting to see some of that. So now that we have data confirming some of these assumptions, we can model it and we can project that forward. Does that make sense? And did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. So can I assume that at least whatever we are showing now is reasonably accurate, and we should not see big surprises in the next 5 years at least?
Yes, again, just based on the data we have at this point in this juncture, yes, I'd say that's a safe assumption. Certainly, as I mentioned, the things that are of note in your particular area, economic factors, we're looking very closely at interest rates, right? Because both the availability and affordability of housing, which is a challenge for a lot of our California districts in terms of young families moving in are a facet. So the other thing the board may want to just consider and be aware that we're keeping track of is return to work policies, specifically in the area of technology, being that you're in Santa Clara County and it's a very tech heavy segment of the country, actually, in the state. That is certainly a facet we're looking at in terms of economic draws to specific areas.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Sylvia, go ahead. So thank you for the presentation. It's a lot of really good data. I had a question about slide 14. And maybe I missed it when you were explaining it, but you had said earlier that in terms of new development, it really wouldn't make a difference unless you're talking about in the thousands. So I'm just trying to understand, because when I'm looking at the hills at Falco and then I see the 400, 500, 500, 500, 502, it does, just so I'm reading that correctly, is that every year there's that many more new developments? And in that case, is that considered in the thousands, or is that not the same?
Yes, and I probably could have been clearer. So I think I mentioned units, where it's really the thousands of net new students from new housing. So you were talking about, entire communities, oftentimes that are designed and built with new schools. So and I also should mention that we do, in our platform, we're able to look at district projections both with and without the impact of new housing. And so for those clients that I'm referring to, if you were to take out that new housing impact, they would actually be declining for the same reasons that all other districts in the state are declining. So you are, I think the spirit of your question is new housing a variable that can move the needle in a district? And that is a definite yes. And so monitoring this, updating this annually is a very, I would think is a very important facet, because certainly if the Hills of Valco were to change, that would have an impact, and that would definitely be something that we need to keep track of. Is that significant? I would say yes. That is a significant development, and it is factored into our projections.
So I think, and maybe to clarify somewhat, when we're talking about Sylvia's reference to, 1,000 units, 1,000 units, depending on what type of units they would equate into how many students. So, for example, we just ran the information shared from us from Saratoga that they are looking at allowing more duplexes and triplexes. And so they gave us a number that there would be an additional 170 units that would fall within our attendance area, Saratoga. When we ran the student generation rate, or Ron ran it for us, that equated to 25 students spread across all grade levels. That's what that housing unit of 170 would actually generate to us. So, it depends on the number of the units, but also the type of units that then are applied to the student generation rate that gives you that number of students. So, I think this slide's important because it shows the total number of units. But if you look at the following slide, it actually shows how many students are going to be generated from each of those types of units.
I see. Okay. All right. Thank you. That helps me understand it. I did have one other question related to that generational, going from kind of 20 years to 30 years. So when we look at the long picture of the district's enrollment, I think kind of traditionally, or in the past, we always kind of said, oh, well, 20 years from now, things will look different. But what I'm understanding from you is that number is no longer 20, it's 30 years from now is when maybe some of the folks that are retired and might be moving out of their homes and new families will be moving in. Is kind of the number that we're looking at needs to shift from 20 years from now to 30 years from now, just in general, when we're talking about that?
Yeah, so this, there's a couple of details here on this slide here. That 1970, I won't go back all the way. That 1970, that just happened to be a year where we had good data on that, and we want to do that comparison. And it's also representative of just how significant that change is. So looking out, is the question like, should you plan for like 20 years or 30 years? That's a little bit hard for me to answer, being that all demographic data is actually backwards looking, right? And so we have great data, demographic data about what has happened. The kind of the art and the science get a little more difficult when you're trying to take that forward. So the question is, if the question is like, will that change in the next 10 or 20 or 30 years? I don't know. That's kind of a larger societal shift more than anything.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? I'm good, thank you.
Ava, did you have some questions?
I did.
Go ahead.
Thank you for being here, and thank you, Mahmood, for moving it around so that we can see the data as it's presented. It's great to have this technology. I'm also going to be commenting on slide 14, just some clarifying questions regarding some of the housing properties that you have listed. The one towards the bottom that says the Wolf property, is this referring to the property that's on 10333 North Wolf Road, where the land was swapped with land owned by Apple? It was originally owned by Apple and it was swapped with the property on De Anza Boulevard for the teacher housing.
I believe it is, yeah.
Yeah, with the Santa Clara County the Board of Supervisors.
I'm not certain, but I believe it is. We can double check it.
Okay. The other question was on I'm assuming this does not have any of the possible, and I say possible, housing plans for Hill De Anza, because in 2020 they passed like an $898 million bond, and one of the things that they've been talking about is possible housing. And then the reason that may not be mentioned here is because they're still in the exploration process.
So this report's only incorporated into the known housing areas.
The known housing
So none
that's
of
gone
those that are
through
being-
the official city, pathways. Okay, those are the questions I have so far. Thank you.
Yes. And I had a question. I'm not sure, Ron, if it's for you. By the way, thank you for the very detailed information. This may be a question for Chris. I'm not sure. How do we as a district differentiate between the moderate projections and the conservative projections?
Great question. For our multi-year, we obviously are trying to project out what our enrollment looks like as well as our staffing needs. And so we've been kind of using a blend of things. We obviously are using current staffing levels, current enrollment numbers as we project out for next year. We have the demographers report. And so what we kind of typically do is we push forward all the kids that are in the current grade levels, assuming that they all return the following year. And then we really utilize their incoming TK and kinder numbers, because those are really more tied to the birth rate information that's available. So we do all that, and so we do look at the differences between the conservative and the moderate. Obviously, there's a big difference between the two, and so for purposes of building a budget, I would say we would be looking at from the standpoint of revenue, looking at what the most conservative number would be. But for staffing purposes, obviously, we'd be looking at the moderate in terms of that's how many certificated staff we could potentially need to have.
Great, thank you, Chris. Anybody have anything on redirect? Okay, do we have any public comment, Erin?
No, we do not.
All right, so this is information. What do
It
you
is
want from us?
information
What do you
only, just, again, we bring it up annually. We'll be sharing it with our enrollment task force. I think, one of the takeaways is looking at either slide 18 or 19, when you're really looking at those long-term projections. I know one of you asked about last year, we were sitting here, kind of concerned because we were taking such a dramatic dive. And when you look at the outline now, we do stabilize. We're small. We've still lost about 6,000 to 7,000 students from our peak back in 2015, but we do stabilize. And so we see some of that positive side. And, whether it's because of birth rates, whether it's housing, or because of some of the great things that we're doing in CUSD that maybe families aren't leaving, I think it's on the positive trend there. So I just really wanted to highlight that.
Great. Okay, so nothing for us to
Nothing
do
for
at
you to
this
do.
point. Information only. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Happy holidays. So now we move on to a discussion item, just green energy innovations. Is that you, Chris?
Yes, thank you,
Okay.
thank you. There isn't any kind of formal presentation tonight. What we want to do is make sure that we have the board, give the board a chance to look at this item over a period of 2 meetings. So tonight was really more for a reminder to the board. You had already authorized staff to move forward with the assessments of our lighting and heating and ventilation. Based off of the assessment, this is the planned work to retrofit the remaining amount of lighting that we have to LED. We actually started this project several years back with Proposition 39, but with Proposition 39, as well as our previous bond, we just didn't have enough money to finish out those projects. So with this will allow us to finish out retrofitting all of those old lighting to LEDs. And so over a span of time, we'll be able to essentially pay for all this, because essentially through funding through PG&E, we're able to then use PG&E to basically help us cover the cost of the lighting today. And as we pay each year our utility bills to PG&E, that those funds that we're paying for utilities will be going to pay down the cost of the project. So over, I don't know, I don't remember if it's 10 to 15 years, might be closer to 15 years, that it will take us to pay down the cost of the lighting upgrade. But at some point in time, they'll be all fully paid off from what we're setting aside now.
So are you saying that the cost, that there's no cost to us because it's offset by the savings?
There's no additional cost to us. What we pay to PG&E right now basically will be paying toward the cost of the lighting upgrades. So there's no additional cost to us.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions or comments from the board? Satish?
Yeah, so now we have the solar stuff what is going on, right? So this is we will be taking a lot of benefit from that as well, right? So since we are having kind of free electricity with the solar, so this project and that, how does it means like are we jumping in before that? It's a general the green approach we are taking here. What's the significance of it at this point? Because we are going to get anyway our solar going to be implemented sooner or later, right?
Well, I would kind of maybe look at them separately, right? Obviously, solar is going to help us generate electricity on our own without having to buy electricity directly from PG&E. The size of the solar panel in the system is designed based off of what our projected, based off of our current utilization and capacity. So as we retrofit some of these older lights, what it will mean is that we won't have such a high demand for electricity. And so what it will do is it will require us to pay less and less towards, well, we would require less and less electricity as we are retrofitting to more higher efficiency lighting and things like that. So I would look at it kind of separately, because the fact that we're going to have solar panels just means that we're going to be generating electricity, as I said, without having to purchase it. But the amount of electricity that we generate is also driven by what our consumption needs are. So by lowering our demand to need electricity for some of this lighting, it just means that we won't have to generate as much based off of the current lighting that we have right now.
And what's a timeline? What this one? Like how long it will take for this migration?
Well, the retrofit will happen within a year. So we'll have all the retrofitting done within a year for the lighting pieces. But then the solar is going to take probably about a year and a half to 2 years.
And the associated cost, I think I'm going with what fellas asked, right? So no cost for us. Right? So there is some cost, right? There is some expense on this, right? I know it will offset. So that initial expense, what is it?
There aren't any costs.
So the cost that would come for these lighting is covered by, so let's say we're already paying $30,000 a month in PG&E. We're going to have a lower energy cost with these new lights. And so we would still be paying $30,000 to PG&E, but it offsets covering the cost of the new lights. So there's no cost to us, but we're getting to do all the retrofitting in, and eventually then we would start seeing.
But then to add to that, Stacy, is that the cost savings that we're getting by having solar is going to pay for the debt of the solar as well.
Right.
So at the end of the day, what we're paying right now to PG&E is going to cover the cost of the retrofit and as well as the cost of the solar over time.
Yeah, I support the green initiative, but I think the cost was more concerned. That's why. Thanks.
Let me just piggyback on what Satish asked. So I understand that the replacement of the lighting is not going to cost us anything, but is the labor and installation part of that, or?
That is all part of that.
And that's our folks doing that. No, it's someone else. It's another company coming in to do it. But the cost of that will be offset by the savings that we're getting.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. All right. I had a question about LED lights in general, because I'm just not that, totally not familiar with it, but are they generally brighter than the current lights that we have?
I'm not a lighting specialist. I think that they could be as bright or as soft as you want them to be. I think it just depends on the type of lighting fixture that you have.
Okay.
But it's intended to be a lot cleaner light. Then you can have, again, a little bit more softer lights or more brighter lights. So it just depends on the type of fixture that you have.
Okay. So I guess my comment for that then would be, I would want to make sure that whatever lighting is being replaced is not dimmer
Sure.
than what
Sure.
what we have, right? Like to make sure that for everybody who's in the classroom, that it's going to be, that it will actually be brighter, hopefully. And then I'm excited about the smart lighting control. And I know we had talked about that at one point, like different kind of smart technologies within the classroom. I see on the description that it's not saying that it is going to be integrated, but it can be integrated. And so would that be part of, as we look at facilities, as we look at bond, would that be part of that conversation? Or would this possibly be part of that retrofit?
The control aspect, as you're saying, programmable, those will be more related to the bond program, because this is just to replace the fixtures, the devices, but then they'll all have to be controlled. And so having more of that control will be more part of the bond program.
So again, choosing which lights or what LED lights are going to be replacing the current ones, would we be selecting ones that had the capability for that control later on? Should we make that part of the bond?
I think we could. I think we could. And as I understand the technology, these newer systems are very upgradable.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, Ava, you had something?
Yes. Thank you. Chris, we're looking at your attachment that you had on the total cost, the CUSD LED lighting retrofit summary. Was that cost including, because you did say that it started out with Prop 39 funds. Does this include the funds that was paid through Prop 39, or is this in addition to that?
This is above and over or in addition to what was previously done on a Prop 39.
Okay, and I appreciate how Satish and Sylvia talked about the costs. And I had the same question, and I'm clarified that it is paid through the profits from the solar panels energy, not including the debt that we will be incurring of buying and installing the solar panels.
I wouldn't call it profits, but savings from
Or
energy
savings, where our cost would be projected. So of what we're cost projected out, you said we only take probably 1 to 2 years, and then after that would be.
No, I think I think 15 years.
Oh, you said 15 years, okay. And then I also had the same concern about, I'm excited about having the ability for teachers in the classroom to be able to dim the lights or have some sort of control over the lights, because there are some students that may have sensitivity or different activities that will need different intensities of light. And then when we say smart, does that also include like color LED as well?
It's possible. It's possible.
Okay, and then to reinforce what Sylvia inquired, we would the control panel part of it would be need to be included in if we were to explore and go into a bond.
Right. Those would be like those. We refer to them as low voltage controls. Those are the controls in the classroom, whether it be lighting or heating and cooling.
Okay. Thank you.
Jerry, anything?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the cost and cash flow and ROI and all that. So I'll ask maybe the similar questions my way just to help me understand. So right there, so this is $3.7 million that that'll cost for GEI to put this in. So and then this is cost neutral. And I heard a couple of different things to the answer. So I'm wondering, is the 3.7 million paid for by A, savings in energy, B, PG&E incentives, or C, savings from like solar cells and stuff? Because I heard different elements. So presumably that 3.7 million is covered by something, so it's not out of our general fund. So is it just because it uses less electricity? Is it because we get savings from having solar panels, or is it because PG&E has incentives, or some combination thereof?
Well, I think there is some PG&E incentives in there. I don't have that off the top of my head, but to the other points, yes, it's based off of savings, energy savings, because of obviously more high efficiency. What we would be normally paying to PG&E, if we were paying the same $100 towards PG&E,
right
now with the energy efficiencies, maybe only 70% of it actually applies to electricity. The other 30% of it is now being applied to the cost to do the retrofit. And then, as I was saying, that over 15 years, the payback for the $3.7 million will cover that.
So, okay, so we're paying, so this is being paid for because we pay less to PG&E. And there are two elements here. One is because the light bulbs are more efficient. The other is because we did the solar panel thing, right? Or the solar panel just not into it at all?
The solar panels is separate from this,
Right,
yes.
so if we weren't doing this, we could actually pocket more savings from the solar panels then.
If we didn't do the lighting upgrade, we would
Right.
pocket more for the solar.
Yeah, because it sounds like what you're saying is some of the solar panel savings goes to pay for these light bulbs.
Well, I mean, setting aside the solar, right? If we just did this, there would be, at the end of the day, general fund savings because we would be going with more higher efficient
Sure.
lighting that would require us to use less electricity.
Okay.
Now with the solar, until the solar is fully paid off, right? You know, we aren't going to have any net savings back yet to the general fund, but once that happens, then all of this will be general fund savings. So once this is paid off, and once the solar is paid off, all those savings that we spend roughly $3-4 million a year in electricity would come back directly to the general fund.
But light bulbs wear out, right? I wouldn't expect it to last 15 years. So at some point, it's okay. I think I'm just trying to figure out like where the savings come from because I heard a bunch of different things, but it's okay. It's fine. The other thing I wanted to ask you talked about a payback of 11 to 15 years. The agenda material says 6 years.
Oh, I might be mistaken. I'm sorry.
So big 6 sounds reasonable.
It's at 6 years. Okay.
11 to 15 sounded like kind of long.
Okay, I mean, staff put this together and I apologize.
So it should be 6.
It should be 6 then.
Okay, feel much better then. All right, great, thanks. Thanks, Phyllis.
I have no questions or comments, anything on?
I have the last
Okay.
one. So I think again, cost, right? I think, so some kind of, or we are certain assumption we are doing here, that is, we all know that you will save a lot with the LED thing, absolutely. And just 30% saving or 35%, whatever it is. And we are saying that over a period of time, this 3.7 will get offset. So some level of calculation is done on that. Every year, what is it kind of thing? And that's why the 6 years came, or
So maybe we can put it in the context of how we explained with the solar. So instead of going out and getting a loan for the $3.7 million to do the retrofit, that $3.7 million is instead of the loan. So PG&E is how calculated over 6 years, you're going to have this much savings because you have more efficient lights. That savings is going to be spread out over 6 years, paying off the $3.7 million. Does that help?
yeah. Yeah, okay.
So every month we're gonna, and again, so every month we're gonna pay PG&E $100,000.
No, I understood, but yeah, I know the simple math
But
perspective.
now our actual energy cost is only 80,000.
Yeah.
That other 20,000 each time is going towards paying this 3.7 million.
So you continue paying the same 100,000 for next 6 years, but you are getting this free.
That's PG&E's program that they set up.
And
to
after
do the
6 years,
retrofit.
you will be probably paying only that 70.
Yes, after 6 years, this 3.7 is done, the lights are retrofitted, we're gonna be paying a lower PG&E bill.
Cece, would it be helpful, since it's only information tonight, we were gonna bring it back another time? If the next meeting, we come back and bring some of the numbers.
We can bring some of the diagrams too and show just to.
Actually, with the NG stuff, we have done that 19 years calculations or whatever. It was giving initially we had the same.
We can have something similar.
Yeah, something similar. So that will come, I think, clarify most of our.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks. But it's a lot of good information. Yeah.
It's good questions. Great question.
Okay, anything else? Do we have any public comment?
No public comments.
Okay, thank you. Next, 11.1, the first interim budget. Chris, do we have a presentation on this?
We need it. Actually, it's an action
Oh,
item.
it's an action item. I'm sorry. So we need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, second.
And Ava seconds. Okay. Now, Chris, are you doing this?
No, as we presented last time, tonight, we're presenting to you for approval, the first interim budget for this year. We're happy to present a certification with a positive certification. So positive, just to remind the board, a positive certified first annual report means that the district is able to meet its financial obligations in the current year as well as the 2 out years.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I have a comment. This is regarding the page on how much money that we're getting from the Cupertino Education Endowment Foundation. And they have funded so far $181,922, and that covers visual and performing arts, the Blue Hill STEM carts, whole child material, middle school music, and also the middle school cooking materials. And for those who are in our TK system, when you got the TK Tinker boxes, that also covered that. So, and then $2,000 of mental health training. So I just want to take a moment to thank our collaboration with Cupertino Education Endowment Foundation for helping to fund the needs of our school district. Really, I wasn't here for at the beginning with the CTE presentation. I'm hoping with when we find things that CTE will provide additional funding, such as like cooking, one of our electives that that will allow CEF to fund other places of need within our district. So I want to thank that, and that CEF is currently looking for new board members for their foundation, and if you're interested to look into it. Thank you.
Anything else? So I just have one thing that's gone. Oh, no, it's back. Did anything new from the state in terms of what's going to happen, or any new information that you can share with us that you've heard?
I think I can just comment on what I've read in the paper, and I think we've all been reading in the paper that state deficit is going to be growing.
Yeah.
I think it's close to 68 billion right as of now. That's I think that's really the most current information we have right now. I know the Legislative Analyst's Office has already started rendering some thoughts as far as how the state could address its structural deficit. I think one of their suggestions was for the state and the governor to tap the state's rainy day fund. So that was in the news as well as one of their suggestions in terms of how to use it. But other than that, I think we're kind of just waiting to see what the governor has.
Okay, thank you. So Aaron, I think we're ready for a roll call vote.
Trustee Madhato.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye.
Trustee Leong.
Aye.
I forgot to ask for public comment. Was there any?
There are no public comments.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to board activity. Who wants to start? Okay.
I can go ahead and make comments. Okay. Last Saturday, there was a public event called Unity and Light that was on Saturday at 6 and actually happened on our West Valley Elementary campus. This was an event where elected officials from Sunnyvale, Los Altos, and from those cities and Fremont Union High School District were present, including myself. So it was a very positive event. Almost all the seats were filled. In the multi-purpose room. Yeah.
Thank you. Jerry, do you have anything? Community. We did a.
Oh, that's right. Yes, we did a.
You get to report on that.
Sure. It's Phyllis, I think. Yes, Phyllis and I did a community town hall. Really didn't have any participants, so.
Right. So we chatted for half an hour.
For half hour, yes.
So anything?
Nothing. Thank you.
I don't have anything either. Superintendent Young, do you have anything?
I do not.
Okay. Agenda setting. Anybody have anything they want? We already have one thing that we're bringing back. The
lighting.
The lighting, yeah. Anything else?
And I think study session also on the cities, so.
I did have one item. So we've gotten some emails, we've gotten a lot of emails, but some from some middle school teachers talking about math placement. And I think we used to do that placement in 5th grade, and then we're doing 6th grade, and there's some comments about, well, just comments about it. I'd like to understand sort of where we are on that. Are we happy with it? Are we looking to make changes? So maybe just an update on that kind of. Okay, thanks.
Anything else?
Yeah, I was wondering when will we have the board study for special education?
I'll work with Phyllis on scheduling that at one of our upcoming ones.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? All right, we're going to adjourn to closed session. Do we have any public comment on closed session?
No, we do not.
Okay, so we are adjourned to closed session.